Welcome to Across the Ring. My name is William Mayhem Michaels.
This is the scientist, Carl Schupfer, and today we're here with Steve Lycan Vasquez. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, bro. Doing good. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Just got done with another weekend. Just getting ready to just attack the week and do whatever I can to be better.
Hell yeah. Before we get started, for the viewers that don't know who you are, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
My name is Steve Vasquez, goes by as a Lycan in the ring. I've been wrestling for over a year now. I'm a graduate of the Jacobs Pritchard Wrestling Academy at Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm a former MMA fighter. I did that in Arizona for a couple of years. I've done jiu-jitsu for years, kickboxing, and yeah, it's pro wrestling has always been like a love that I've always had. The best way that I could accumulate to is MMA is that one girl that you've been with high school, college, and no matter what, you're always gonna love her. But pro wrestling is always that one that you wondered about. You've had a crush on her before you even met the other one, and now you finally have the opportunity, things haven't been well with the other relationship, and now you have the opportunity to see how this goes. So that's how I compare it. So right now, I think I definitely made the right choice. Pro wrestling has been a lot of fun. It's taken me on a lot of adventures. Like I think in the last 12 months, I've been to like 8 different states as a result of wrestling. And I've gotten to meet people I would have never met if it wasn't for wrestling. And just it's really been life changing and just life altering. And I love it. I love every single minute of it.
Right. You said you've been to 8 different states. You were just recently down in Georgia, right?
Yes, with American Warrior Wrestling Alliance. The dude I wrestled with here in Phoenix, Vikram. He
Mhm.
was down here. He liked my style. We talked about, we pretty much just bonded over Dr. Tom and just old school wrestling. We talked about Bret Hart, and he just picked my brain, and he really liked what I had to bring to the table in terms of just wrestling physicality, but also knowledge of the game as well, as opposed to just say, I can do a front flip. It's more, okay, here's why we're doing it. So he's given me the opportunity to go out to Georgia. I've been out there twice. Hopefully to go back there again in December or January, whenever that gets situated. I'll be more than happy to go out there.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So, you said that, MMA had been kind of your life for a while, but wrestling was always something that, you had your eye on. When did you first get introduced to wrestling, like as a fan?
So there's a funny thing that we say around the house, like with my dad, that I was like 2 months old, and my dad had come up to my mom and been like, "Hey, you're good for the night? You're with the baby and everything?" It's like, "Yeah, why? Where you going? You gonna go watch Lucha Libre?" And this was back in Los Angeles, early 90s. AAA was just taking off, so he would always be down there whenever Conan was in town towards the tail end of Pedro Aguayo's career. So to me, like it's just something I always grew up with, like be it Mexican wrestling or American wrestling. And then to me, the match that always stood out to me where I decided, okay, this is it. I'm a lifelong fan. This is what I want to do was March 2004, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. They were in the main event, and Eddie won the match, and then they shake hands afterwards. Paul Heyman comes out. So off the bat, you got three great of the greatest characters ever. And Paul Heyman kind of goes on like this racist tirade of like, in Paul Heyman's America, you two get deported. There's not a single man alive that can stop me. And then you just hear the dong, and it's The Undertaker, fresh out of WrestleMania 20 when he was doing the hybrid American Badass and the Dead Man again. So,
Mhm.
and Paul Bearer came out, and at that moment, I was like, wow, that is the coolest dude I've ever seen. Just slow, menacing, and just everything about that. So, like, that was from that moment on, I was like, all right, that's what I want to do. Because Eddie Guerrero, for me, like as a Hispanic Latinos wrestler, there weren't a lot of guys that looked like I look or look like me or resemble me a lot growing up. And it was always Ray and Eddie Guerrero. So to me, it's like, well, these guys can do it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of times people mistake you for like Samoan because of how tall and your actual build. Like, has anyone ever like try and like push you to do that rather than back your Hispanic heritage?
I know that we had joked about it in Tennessee about me being like the Persian prince or some Egyptian prince or something. Like that was an idea that was just like there was no traction to it, but it was something that was kind of kicked around because of my beard when it grows in, and especially when I'm in the sun too much, I get really tan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was just starting to wear like the suits and starting to wear, all the fancier clothes. And people are like, dude, you don't look like you're from around here. I was like, I got that already. But no, dude, you look like you come from oil money. And I'm like, okay, we can work with that. But nothing ever came of it. When I was doing construction in Oklahoma, I remember there was just like, everyone's just messing around, joking with each other. And this one dude goes up to me. He's like, Mexicans, am I right? I'm like, bro, I'm Mexican. And he's like, oh my God, I thought you were Cherokee. But again, I had my hair all the way down to like my waist at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm always getting confused. And I think that's fun because then like it means that I am more identifiable with more than just one group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. Being, if you feel like you're kind of ambiguous, with the way you look, you can, being able to do different things, have more options. You won't, you're not being put into just one, mold and being like, well, you have to be this or whatever. You seem to have some options there. So, we were talking about, wrestling really, has been around your whole life. Your dad was a big fan. You talked about how, really what's really pulled out of you was, seeing, people that were, wrestlers that were, felt like could be like you could be like them, Eddie and stuff like that. So then what told you then, what was the thing that then sparked for you to say, I want to train to be a wrestler?
So training to be a wrestler was always in the books. If I had had the choice and everything, I would have never gone to high school or college. I would have just gone straight to wrestling. That would have been my pathway. But growing up is like you got to go to college, you got to go to school, you got to do this. And I always excelled at school. I was, A plus kid in high school and college, but it just to me was boring, and I had people trying to push me, oh, get a biomedical degree or get like some chemical engineering degree or go to this or that or and to me it was always boring. That was never my calling. And to me the two things that always stood out to me was MMA and pro wrestling. And I only got into MMA because Brock Lesnar jumped over.
That makes
Heck yeah.
sense. So since you went into MMA first, how did you first get into doing that? Were you like a wrestler and then you got into MMA, or did you just join a gym, or how did
I
that come?
wrestled in from 8th grade moving forward through high school.
Okay.
So I wrestled all that. Like I always knew in the back of my head that I wanted to do one or the other or both if possible. So that was always my goal. Like if you read my PowerPoints that I did for college and career prep, it was always all right to get into UFC or do pro wrestling. So it was always I knew it was going to be one or the other because one, I'm super competitive. Like I'm sure Will tell you, I get competitive for no reason and I'm always trying to win at everything I do. So that's where the natural like there's no better form of competition than mixed martial arts because it's just you and the other guy. There's no team to blame it on. There's no, oh, that was bad coaching. No, it's just you and the other person across the cage from you. And it's just a surreal moment. But I kind of figured that my time in MMA was always kind of limited when I fought for LFA. I fought for LFA at what was at the time was called Comerica Theater. And I remember sitting back there and I remember being starstruck, not because it was a big arena, but I didn't care about that. It was more, hey, I just saw NXT here like 3 weeks ago. And my coaches are like, shut up, you're in the wrong sport right now. You got to focus on this.
That's really funny.
That
So
is really funny.
so when it comes to that too, so you did MMA, you did some, pretty big fights, and then now you do pro wrestling. How's the lifestyle change been? So like I know like with MMA, like there's a lot of cutting. You're kind of trying to stay in your weight class. With pro wrestling, it's kind of the bigger you can get, the better. How has that been as a transition for you from trying being in more of a cutting and maintaining a mentality to into more of a pro wrestler mentality?
I think physically I'm healthier now than I ever was in MMA. Because with MMA, I was always cutting weight, and that was just the old school wrestler mindset of the lighter you are, the better it is.
Mhm.
Looking back at it, especially my sophomore and junior year, the majority injuries I had and just the way things went would have been a lot better had I not cut that weight, had I just let my body grow into the body that it wanted to get. When I fought at 155, that was like a 7-month cut. So that was awesome. Unfortunately, COVID came in and just derailed everything. But yeah, it's a lot more discipline with MMA. but there's also that unpredictability that just it like you have to be prepared. It doesn't matter. Like you have to be in shape. You have to show up prepared because if not, you're going to get seriously hurt. And like the main breaking point for me saying, hey, I have to do pro wrestling now. I broke my foot my last MMA fight. I kicked the knee second round, and I finished the fight, didn't get knocked out, you know, didn't get too hurt. It was just okay, I broke my foot, I can't walk. Dude wins by decision. Props to him. But I was like, okay, I'm 24, 25 at the time, and I'm like, I'm running out of time. I need to get into pro wrestling now because then, you know, no one beats father time, no one can outrun it. So I have to get on this. Like I know that if I want to fight again, I can, take 3 months and I'm good to fight again.
Yeah.
I have that confidence in myself. I have that, all the years I've put in, I know that I can get back into it at any moment that I want. But pro wrestling, it's something completely foreign, completely alien to me. And pro wrestling is not just, oh, big moves, big move this, or look how strong I am. No, there's that, but you also have to be able to tell a story. You have to
Yes.
resonate with the fans. You got to understand your climate, your environment, You got to be a politician. You got to know the politics. And you got to be a businessman, merchandise, marketing. There's so much to wrestling that you have to be able to do, especially at the independent level if you want to make money. So,
Right, right. So speaking of that, I want to talk about you at first getting into wrestling. You were, as you already said, trained by Dr. Pritchard. And how did that kind of fall in for you? Like, how did you get into schooling with him? And how did you come up with El Lycan as your ring name? What's the story behind that?
so going with Dr. Tom first, I had seen Sheamus's workout series that he does online, where he
Mhm.
was like traveling to a different state or different city and training with different people. And I saw the way Dr. Tom trained, and his reputation is massive. Trained Kurt Angle, trained The Rock, trained just a who's who of everybody. Like he was the original performance center guy. He was the first head coach. So why not go out there? If I can't go to WWE right off the bat, what's the next best thing? And so there was that. And that ties into a Lycan. A Lycan is the name I had when I was doing MMA. When I got that name, my coach at the time, Johnny Winthrow, he came up with it. He was trying to think of something like because of the long hair, and at the time it was way longer than it was now. And he's like, we got to think of something like Steve the Lion. And keep in mind, at this time, I'm rolling with him. I'm like 185 pounds and he's 125. And I'm just trying to maul him. And he's still like, no, we can come up with something. That's just how much of a mastery he had of the sport. And so he eventually, we're both nerds and we just ended up talking about Van Helsing and the Underworld movies. And he's like, Lycan, there it is. You look like a Lycan. You look like a werewolf. And the way you fight, I have that, I want to say Tony Ferguson, Chael Sonnen style of fighting to where I don't get tired. I'm gonna keep going. And I do significantly worse in my first round than I do in my third round because I just keep getting better as it goes. It's probably the cross country running I did. I'm used to marathons as opposed to sprints. So yeah, so I kept that. But when I went to Dr. Tom, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reinvent myself. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do that. And the promos just weren't sticking and there was just something missing, and I was trying to keep that liking thing like, okay, that's MMA. And then finally, like towards week 8, I was like, you know what, screw this. And my coach Mario Velez Jr. from Legion MMA, he sent me a shirt that had a Lycan on it, and that was like the first time I'd actually seen it on a shirt. And I was like, well, I'd seen it on other shirts, but it was like the first like prototype of the shirt you have now.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I saw it and I was like, you know what? This is who I am. This is part of who I am. Like, if I deny it, I deny everything that I've ever put into the table. And so I figured I'm just gonna embrace it, and it's like that's a name I've used since 2016. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna adapt that into professional wrestling.
Right. And I like, because I know you and I have traveled together to El Paso and stuff like that. We've ran into each other in California. I know that you are always open to training it at different places. Like you've trained with SCW, you've trained with AWF. I know you got something coming up, and I don't want to say anything about that because you probably don't want that out yet. But
Yeah, no, I done not until I'm actually at the place
okay.
in front of it and I can take a photo in front of the lion. I think that's I'm gonna wait until we get there in January.
But I like the fact that you have a year in, you're still green, but you're not scared to go to different places and try it out and train with different people to get different feedback. You know what I mean? I think that's something that some people are missing out on that you're definitely taking advantage of. But I know that you have a couple shows coming up. Mentally, what do you do to prepare yourself for that?
So because of MMA, I don't have the anxiety going into pro wrestling the way some of my peers do. I've
Mhm.
seen my second match ever. I think I had a dude that said he was like a 2-year veteran, kind of like break down outside, and it was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I always do this at a new show. I always get super nervous and anxiety like overtakes me, but he's fine in the ring." And to me, I never experienced that. Like I'm fully aware of the danger that comes with pro wrestling. I'm fully aware of it,
Mhm.
but at the same time, to me, it's so much fun that I don't care. Like it just doesn't register. Like the danger is there, but it doesn't register it. So I don't get the anxiety. I get like an excitement, like let's go, like let's. And yeah, so I still do the same thing I did before MMA. Like I'll slap my arms, slap my thighs, just slap my chest, just get everything, like just trying to get into that different persona, different mindset, but
Mhm.
in a different setting.
Kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
like awakening the Lycan, huh?
Pretty much.
Go ahead, Carl.
yeah. So yeah, it seems like you have a very focused mindset and a very more athletics mindset when it comes to wrestling. Do you think that's the case, or do you think that you come from like a character side as well?
I try to be 50-50 with that because the character, you can be athletic all you want and you can be like the greatest technical wrestler, but if your character doesn't connect with people, if people don't invest in you, if you don't give them a reason to care, why you could be the best athlete in the world, it's not going to work out. And we've seen that countless of times in WWE. We've seen that countless of times in TNA and even AEW. Oh, this guy's a super athlete, but can't, the wrestling isn't there.
Mhm.
So to me, I think character is important. I'm not saying go full cartoony, but there has to be larger than life. Dr. Tom told me if you want to be a star, you dress like a star. If you want to act like a star, you act like a star. If you want to be perceived as a star, you show up and be perceived like a star. That's why when I go to like different shows and venues, I'm always wearing different like over the top flashy, even like flamboyant outfits. Like I'm sure you guys have seen my Instagram, like over the top. I've even added that the rock star style hat to it, the rockabilly style, like Rob Zombie. So I was like, okay, that's a little something different. We can play with that. And so yeah, like with me, my favorite thing I started doing is going to the airports dressed with all the chains I could do and all the rings and just over the top looking like somebody. And I've gotten at questions like, hey, are you a musician or are you on tour or something? So getting that already is. And then I'm a pretty tall dude. I'm 6'2". So it's kind of hard to miss me. So that's been good. And I'm like, I think back to what Dr. Tom said. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm passing the airport test. And so that creates interest. If you
Right.
look like a wrestler, the easier it is for people to get behind the wrestling. If you carry yourself like a wrestler, you got to treat the sport with respect. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing right now with professional wrestling. People take it too much like it's a game or it is a show, but they forget it should still be competition. It should still be, hey, I can beat you. Here's why. And I
Mhm.
think that competitive side is missing. There are some states I've seen where it's like, wow, this is awesome. Like I'll put over the guys in El Paso. Those guys, I look at it and I'm like, dude, these guys go to war.
Yeah.
So it's not just, hey, I can do a front flip or look at how many cartwheels I can do. And
Mhm.
there's different flavors of ice cream for everybody. Different flavors. There's room and wrestling for everybody. But to me, I want to present almost what Bret Hart presented. Every time Bret
Mhm.
Hart stepped into the ring, he bought it. You believe that he was serious, that he was in there to win, that he can do what he was. He was the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. you
Oh,
know?
I think I think the fact that you're so inspired by Bret Hart is incredible. You know, he was a guy that, not only did he, kind of hold himself as, like a wrestler's wrestler, but even stuff like throughout his matches and stuff, like every time, every like injury or everything that happened in the match, it all built up in a way over time that just like made sense, and like the things that he did would be unique. And so to take a wrestler that, really put wrestling on a different pedestal than, most before and after him, I think that if you're trying to follow in those footsteps and, be in the same vein as what he did, I think that you're going to be very successful.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's always, to me, it's always been Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, CM Punk, early CM Punk when he first came out, ECW, like 2005 to 2008 CM Punk. And of course, The Undertaker's a big one. So those guys were always, those are who I try to emulate a lot, and then Sting as well. Mostly because I'm at a size to where in the modern independent circuit, I can pretty much pick up everybody over my
Mhm.
shoulders. But I can also do cruiserweight stuff that probably someone that's 220 pounds probably shouldn't be doing.
Right.
So that's what I like, where it's like, okay, I can do it. Okay, you want a lucha style match? Cool, I can do that. I probably can't do all the crazy flips they can, but I can do something to where I'm gonna keep up with you. You want to have a
Right.
technical mat? You want to have a technical mat classic? I can do that. I'm fully confident that in my chain wrestling ability. And then if we want to just be brawlers and just be big boys and just, corn-fed motherfuckers. Oh, I don't know if I can cuss or not,
You can
but
say that. You're good.
just two big corn-fed motherfuckers just smacking each other. And by no means am I the biggest guy. I know that, but
Hmm.
I can present myself.
Yeah.
Funny story about that is, did you guys see Karrion Kross's post like a couple months ago where he did a body transformation?
I did see it.
That rings a bell. I know that he's definitely a guy that goes like really hard in the gym.
Yeah, he's actually like modern inspiration in terms of like carrying himself and just character wise. But also like from the athletic standpoint, I was looking at it and he posted, because there was one point where he was looking pretty beefy, but he said that the way his body works, he's the strongest he's ever been, but just the way his body absorbs carbohydrates, he looks huskier. And it was more of a strongman build when he was like 285 versus what they want in wrestling, which is more bodybuilder shredded. And that's
Right.
actually what happened to me when I was in Tennessee. I was always so used to being down at 155, 170, 185 that I ballooned up to 230. And I felt great. I looked good, but I definitely looked a lot chunkier than I ever did.
Like your
But
Yeah.
strength wise,
cornbread fed.
Yeah.
oh, dude,
Me.
that's all the cornbread was everywhere in Tennessee. Every meal you
Yeah,
had,
I
you'd go out
know.
to eat.
I
There's
know.
some
Yeah.
cornbread.
Yeah.
I'm really. Go ahead, Carl.
I was gonna say you get a lot of guys like that up in Wisconsin here. We got a lot of beer and a lot of cheese up here, so you get a lot of thick guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean even coming off of MMA, right? You were so lean, and typically, if you want to put on mass, you are going to have to thicken up in the short term, right? You can't add muscle without, in the short term, adding some fat. But I don't know. It seems like now, like you look huge, like you tag us in a lot of your photos and stuff. And like, I always am like, damn, I've never gotten to see this guy wrestle because he's down by Will, but I'm always impressed whenever you're posting your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm still working on it. I added running back into the mix. So, the running was always something I got really hesitant about after I broke my foot, but now it's like, okay, we're good. So, I want to see what running does to my body. I would just keep playing with my physique and see what I can do.
Hmm.
And as long as the strength stays, we're like, okay, cool, I can lift this guy up and I can do this, or I can safely catch this guy off a crossbody or off a dive. Cool, then I'm doing my job. But to me, the most important thing is look like a professional wrestler, look
Right.
like an athlete, look like I belong in the ring. And one of my big things that I was taught was no fan for any reason should ever think they can get into the ring and mess with you. And that to me, I've always taken serious, where it's like, the best fight's the one you can avoid. But how do you do that? If I'm
Yeah.
If I don't look like I can kick your ass, what am I doing? You
Right,
know?
right. Well, earlier, I'm glad that you brought up El Paso. And the reason I'm glad is you and a guy named Chewy showed up together, had your first match together at Pro Wrestling Legacy. And the match didn't end. I mean, there was no victor because it was a timed out match. You guys went too long. But that ultimately turned into like this respect thing where now you guys are tag teaming together. How is that going for you? Are you looking forward to being a tag team? Because I know you're super over as a baby face down in El Paso now.
Yeah, that's definitely on the tables. Like, whenever Chewy and I can get together and discuss. We have something planned, but I don't want to spoil that for when it comes out. But we do have something in the works. And, I know him as much as we would love to go back to El Paso. We love the road trip getting there. We love the locker room and the fans clearly have a liking for us. So yeah, if Chewy wants to keep being tag teams, we can keep being tag teams. But if he wants to do one-on-ones, he is probably one of my favorite people to get in the ring with, just because, again, similar style, similar body type, similar.
Mhm.
There's a lot of similarities, but enough differences that we can make magic in the ring.
Right. Yeah,
You
because you
know.
guys you guys were quote unquote curtain jerker, but you guys had the crowd screaming for more, wanting you guys to finish the fight, and you guys really got the crowd over.
It's
It
one of those try to top that kind of situations.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
And
we actually went backstage and like the dudes were like, "You motherfuckers," because we did something that Brian Kendrick had just taught at a seminar the day before. And we went in there and we just threw it in there. And to me, I had seen that before when Terry Funk did it, but I had never actually had it taught. And so being able to do that, it was just awesome. But when we got to the back, it was, oh, you guys did the Kendrick spot. Oh,
That's awesome.
yeah, well, see, going last isn't always the best thing, right?
right, right. So, are you looking forward to being a tag team? Because I know you've done a lot of solo wrestling. Are you looking forward to the
Oh yeah,
to what might be?
if it creates opportunities, then let's create opportunities. There's always circumstances, but I like Bruce Lee's quotes, to hell with circumstances, I create opportunities. And if being in a tag team with Chewy creates even more opportunities, not just for myself, but for him, and it gets us seeing more places, it gets us traveling, it gets us wrestling different wrestlers, different competitors, different styles.
Mhm.
Why not? That's what we're in here to do. We're here, it's the competitor in me as well. I want to face the best. That way I can be better. That way I can become the best. My goal has never been be the best in Arizona, be the best professional wrestler in Arizona. No, no, no. I don't want to be a big fish in a small pond. I want to be the shark that's in charge of the ocean. Nay, forget that. I want to be Godzilla in the ocean. That's what I want to do. And then I want to put that target on my back where it's like, all right, guys, I'm at the top of the mountain. Come get me.
Hell
Heck
yeah.
yeah.
We love that. It's always nice when you get to interview somebody that's as motivated as you and as driven as you. And, it makes us really excited to see more from you and hopefully get to see you more stages, bigger arenas, all that kind of stuff. Continue to see you grow. But some fans aren't as sold as guys like us are, right? Like we think that you're awesome, but somebody listening might be like, you know what? I need more. I don't know. The Steve guy, he sounds great and all, but I still need to be won over. So for fans that are listening and need a more of a push to come see you wrestle, what do you say to fans that are asking why they should come see you wrestle?
Good one. But I think very simple is that what I bring different from everyone else is that to me, it's an actual competition. To me, I'm going in there with the same intensity I would as an MMA. To me, when I lock up with you, I want the fans to see like, oh my God, that's a lockup. That's not like a choreographed. That wasn't scripted. Oh my God, he picked him up not because the guy posted, but because he just snatched him out of the air. I want to present that. I want to be, I'm not trying to be Bill Goldberg by any means. Someone else is going to do that. I'm sure you guys will hear from him later. That's not what I'm trying to do. To me, it's when you watch me, you're watching a professional wrestling match. You're going to know that, oh my God, that is a throwback to 90s Shawn Michaels. That's a throwback to Bret Hart. That's a throwback to what Eddie Guerrero you can do. You know, granted, I'm not the athlete they were. I'm not there. I'm humble enough to see that. But I know my worth because I know what I can do. And I'm trying to play the lines of like kayfabe or anything. Like with me, if I want to take control in that ring, I'm gonna take control in that ring. You know? And apart from that, man, I'm one of the few people that's actually doing promos online and constantly posting promos online. I'm sure you guys have seen them. I tag you guys in all of them.
Yeah.
I like over the top shenanigans. That's my thing. Over the top shenanigans. There's a seriousness to everything I do, but to me, shenanigans and comedy, if you sneak it in there, gets you over. Again, Shawn Michaels was hilarious. Same thing with Eddie Guerrero. Same thing with a lot of moments you remember in professional wrestling. It's not just a professional wrestling, it's how they made you feel. It's the emotion that they made you, that they drew from you. It's something that, like, okay, cool, what's going to happen? You know, like the wrestling, yes, we have to be wrestlers, but pick any time in the Attitude Era. Can you walk me through 10 minutes of a match? No. But you can remember, you're always going to remember, but God, my name's Bill. It doesn't matter what your name is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All that, the little catchphrases, the little here and there's a what, you know? That's what makes wrestling great, that you can find someone that you resonate with and someone that, or you hate, and you're willing to pay the money, you're willing to spend your Friday night saying, hey, I want to watch that guy because I've been with him this whole journey. You guys remember, how did it feel when AJ Styles walked down in the Royal Rumble?
Ooh.
Still one of the greatest debuts ever, where you just hear the
I
music, you see
agree.
AJ,
Yeah, I
you know?
agree. Yeah.
But that's because you saw the journey. You saw what happened with him in TNA. You saw him get screwed over, paycheck cut in TNA. You saw him go to Japan. And when he finally made it to the big one, wow.
Yeah.
Same thing with LA Knight. LA Knight similar. Not as big as AJ, but still, look at what he's been able to do.
Yeah.
Everything's been thrown against him, and he's been able to turn negatives into positives.
Eli Drake.
Eli Drake. Yeah.
Heck yeah,
Dummy.
man. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. As always, Steve, I want to go ahead and say thank you so much for coming on the show, bro.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. And guys, you can follow Steve on Instagram at Steve_L_Lycan. You can catch him at shows in 8 different states, soon to be more, I'm sure.
Oh, soon to be way more. A lot more in California.
There you go. And as always, guys, you never know who will be across the ring.